Hello there. So the government is pushing to significantly raid your pension pots to pay for the pandemic lockdowns. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. Yes, it's all well and good hiding behind doors with your mask on, murmuring a muffled "stay safe" through the letterbox to anyone who delivers your weekly shopping. But there was always going to be a heavy price to pay, and those that supposedly benefited the most from lockdowns, namely the wealthier and those with the money to invest in a pension fund, will now have to part with some of their money to pay for it all. It doesn't matter if you agreed or disagreed with the lockdown, you're still going to pay for it. And I wouldn't get comfortable about it just being a raid on pensions either, because the state has overspent and your savings and homes will also be in the crosshairs of the Treasury, and the beast needs feeding. Just imagine if they took hold of all your assets and gave you a single income from the state in return. Now, where have I heard that one before? The comical irony of a supposedly libertarian Tory government stripping its voters of their assets to pay for an expanding state would be hilarious, were it not so immediately pressing. And it's the private and company pension investments of the wealthier that are being targeted, for now. Because it looks like we have a triple lock to protect the state pension, but a triple threat to private and company pensions. The three threats to the private and company pensions are: the first being the possible lowering of the lifetime allowance from just over £1 million to £800,000 or £900,000. And if you put more than that in, you get taxed. The second threat is reducing or abolishing the tax allowance that higher rate taxpayers get, meaning they will be paying more tax in to get the same pension outcome. And there is talk of getting lower rate taxpayers to fork out a bit more as well, by setting one tax rate for pension contributions at maybe 30%. And the third threat is a brand spanking new tax on employers making pension contributions for their workers. So it looks like the Tories really are looking at levelling up, with one senior government source being quoted in the press as saying, "Our job is to keep people out of poverty, not to enrich the middle classes." But I would just like to remind people of another pension pot raid, that of Gordon Brown's design back in 1997, where the FT advisor said that the pension grab gave the Treasury a boost of nearly £118 billion between 1997 and 2014, but it cost investors £230 billion in lost growth. Now, I know they're not exactly the same, but could we end up with a similar outcome for pension savers? Not good for future pensioners, and it puts off people from investing in one. Why save and then have the government grab it off you just before you retire? Why not just spend now and let the future taxpayers carry you? And there are concerns that this pension policy, coupled with pressing on regardless with HS2 and lifting planning restrictions to get things built, green belt or not, will alienate the core Tory vote. With Steve Webb, former pensions minister and now a partner with the financial consultancy Lane, Clark and Peacock, saying, "If you want 200 more Chesham and Amershams, put together a package like this on pensions tax relief. It's absolutely targeting your base. It is people who are working, earning a good wage and being frugal. Of all subjects, pensions should be a long-term business. People are planning for a generation. What they can't have is constant chopping and changing of the pension rules because the country is broke." And one unnamed Tory MP is quoted in the press as saying, "The Prime Minister is a people pleaser. He wants to carry on spending in the Red Wall. If they can find a way that pushes the bill onto Tory heartlands, they will do it. Clobbering those who are making provision for retirement seems a good place to start. I've got to say, though, that every single government in history has eyed any pot of money with envy, and as a potential target for a haircut to boost the Treasury's coffers, and today's Tories will be no different. And at the moment, house prices are going through the roof, and if Labour was in power, I could definitely see them introducing a wealth tax on property. And the question is, will the Tories go down this route in the end as well? But it may be that it's not just the wealthier voters who will be hit by the Tories, because Rishi Sunak's very recent and far from unequivocal defence of the state pension triple lock should have those who rely on the state pension for their retirement income very worried as well. The triple lock currently increases the state pension every year by the highest of increased annual wages, annual inflation, or by 2.5%. And with wage increases being in the region of 6% at the moment due to a combination of the pandemic and Brexit, then it looks like a bumper state pension jump is on the cards for next April. Unless the triple lock is unhinged or tinkered with to save the Treasury some dosh, of course. And Rishi Sunak did not leap decisively to the defence of the triple lock when he was forensically questioned by Andrew Neil on GB News. In the final analysis, it's the UK taxpayer who will have to pay for the costs of the pandemic, either directly or through government debt repayments. And that's whether or not they received any direct benefit from the pandemic spending. It all comes down to which taxpayers pay and how do we get the money out of them in the least painful way, if there is such a thing. Oh, and the Tories face another test in the Batley and Spen by-election in 10 days' time. Moving on. So what's this about the former Tory MP and Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, joining the Labour Party? Is he hoping he can find some friends somewhere? Not sure they'll be welcoming him with open arms, though. Well, his wife, Sally Bercow, is a devout Labourite, it seems, and desperately wants to be a Labour MP herself. They are a needy pair, aren't they, the Bercows? Anyway, John Bercow told The Observer that the Boris Johnson Tory government is reactionary, populist, nationalistic and sometimes even xenophobic. And it needs to be replaced, he said. But on top of that, he said that Boris Johnson was a lousy governor and also that the PM had contempt for Parliament. Said just about the most not impartial speaker in the history of Parliament, and a speaker whose personnel management apparently left much to be desired. But what all this does is highlight Bercow's ongoing spat with his former party leader for not allowing him to polish the red benches in the House of Lords, as well as his entrenched remain, or should I say rejoin, tendencies. And this move has also attracted much hilarity, with one Telegraph letter writer saying, "Sir, I'm afraid that John Bercow, like Dominic Cummings, is suffering from what the army calls little corporal syndrome, the realisation that they were never as powerful as they thought they were. The louder they shout, the fewer people bother to listen." And there are also comments on social media such as, "At last, John Bercow has done something positive for the Conservative Party," and "The rat has joined the sinking ship." While Patrick O'Flynn writes in the Telegraph that Bercow's defection to Labour couldn't have come at a better time for the Tories. You can imagine the gleeful Bercow jumping ship, thinking he'd leave the Tories rocking in his wake. But I suspect all he's done is settle the Tory ship and set the Labour life raft rocking. And that life raft, piloted by Captain Keir Hindsight Starmer, is rocking, having failed to even get their deposit back in the Amersham and Chesham by-election. Wonder if Bercow thinks he'll be the next Labour leader and then Prime Minister, or that it's an easier route into the House of Lords maybe. So what's your opinion on a pensions raid and John Bercow joining Labour? Please like and comment below.